Exodus 20. Exodus chapter 20. Exodus chapter 20 and verse 17 is where we're going to be tonight. Exodus 20:17, the 10th commandment. So here we are at the end of the 10 words of the 10 commandments. You know, one of the criticisms of the 10 commandments, so who's criticizing the 10 commandments? Well, there are people who are professing Christians but have this view that Old Testament religion was more primitive than New Testament religion. And so the drawback they view of the 10 commandments is that they're just about what you do externally. Don't kill people, don't commit adultery, don't steal people's stuff. New Testament religion, Jesus said, love others as do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Love others, forgive others, etc. And they say that, the 10 commandments are all about externals. The issue is that the 10th commandment isn't. First of all, not to have any other gods before the Lord seems to be a heart issue to me. But here as well, we get to this 10th commandment, and coveting is all about your heart. I can't see somebody coveting. I can see the results of their coveting. I could hear them tell me they're coveting, but I can't tell someone is coveting something. All right, I can't do that. I can't go, I could go outside and see somebody stealing something, but I can't go, I see that guy walking by over there, he's coveting. You don't see it. Why? Because it's internal. So it's a false idea that the God of the Old Testament, who's Jesus, by the way, in their mind, though, the God of the Old Testament was just about external rules. But that's not what the 10 Commandments only deal with. In fact, we see Jesus expand on this in Luke chapter 12, for example. Luke chapter 12. Jesus talks about the heart of coveting here. Luke 12:15, what does he say? And he said unto them, Take heed and beware of covetousness. For a man's life consisteth not in the abundance of the things which he possesseth. In other words, your life isn't made up of what you have. Maybe you've seen the bumper sticker, he who dies with the most toys wins. If you've got all the toys, then you won in life. Well, no, that's not what the Bible teaches. What will a man give in exchange for his soul? We see here in the commandment, let's look at it. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Okay? So what's he start with? Don't covet your neighbor's house. Okay, so here's his home and his homestead. All right, this is easy to do. Let's go to the heart of what coveting is. Coveting is the idea that I need this thing to be happy. In other words, instead of finding my joy in Christ, I think I'll have joy by having things. So if I have the nicer house, then I'll be happy. All right, so that person has a nice house, I don't. The way it's viewed. Or they have a house and I don't have one. Whatever it is. But it's his stuff, right? It's his things. So you look and you go, well, that's a really nice house. I was telling my wife the other day, I was commenting on some homes that were being built. And they look like nice homes. And I looked them up. And I noticed they want $1 million for these homes. And I was like, those don't look like $1 million houses to me. But, there are people who think you've arrived if your house is worth $1 million. Or there are people with $1 million homes that are discontent because they don't have a $4 million home. Or people with $4 million homes who are discontent because they don't have a $45 million home in South Beach or something like that. You know what I mean? With a $100,000 boat out front. And so we can look at all of these things and go, I'll be happy when I have that. Don't covet your neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Okay, so there'd be lots of ways this could happen. Obviously, it could go the other way as well, coveting your neighbor's husband. But the point is, you look at it and you go, well, that person's married and I'd really like to be married. I wish I was married. Or it could be, wow, look at his wife. I wish I was married to her. So it could be the actual person. It could just be that you wish you were married. Or it could be, you say, well, I'm married, but I wish my wife was more like that. I don't want his wife, but I want my wife to behave like his wife. Or I want my husband to behave like her husband. And I would be happy if I had a spouse like that. I have a pastor friend who used to say, the greener grass is AstroTurf. Okay? You look over the fence and your neighbor has greener grass than you. You think, wow, that's really nice. But sometimes it's fake. I shouldn't get surprised by it, but I still do. I see people on social media and they're posting stuff on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And, you see these couples and they're always posting stuff about like, how happily married they are. And then a few months later, I find out they're splitting up. And I'm like, so you were just trying to impress all the rest of us that you had a perfect marriage on Instagram, but you really weren't happily married at all. All right? So sometimes we look at that and go, wow, I wish my spouse was like that. Look at how romantic that guy is. Or look at, this woman, look at, all the, things, the talents she has or whatever. And we can look at all this and go, I'd be happy if I had that person. No, your joy is found in Christ. You know what? If you're married to a sinner, and so is your spouse. Two sinners living together. That other sinner isn't going to replace Jesus as far as contentment goes. Now, having a good spouse is a great blessing. Thank the Lord for that. Having a nice house is a great blessing. Thank the Lord for that. But that person doesn't replace Jesus. All right? Nor his manservant, nor his maidservant. Okay, now, this is talking about slaves, basically, for the most part. But the point is here, if you had servants, that was a sign of wealth. I guess that's sort of true today as well. Even if you don't have slaves, you have, employees. Like, there are people out there in the world that have like a personal assistant, right? They have enough money that they hire somebody that they're like, I never renew my license plate tags. I pay a person to take care of all these details in my life for me. Okay, great. If you have that job and somebody, there are people that can do this, but that's generally a sign that you have a little more wealth if you can hire somebody like that. Most of the rest of us have to go online and renew it or mail it in or whatever, right? And so you can have people who can do these kinds of things for you. Fine. Nothing wrong with that, but it was a sign of wealth. The more servants you had, what's the sign? One of the signs that Abraham is so wealthy in the Old Testament? Yeah, he has all these flocks and things, but he also has a private army. When he has to go rescue Lot, who does he get together? Well, he's got all these men servants, right? You get them together, you got arms for them, and you go to battle. It's enough to have his own private army. You got some money if you got your own private army, all right? But you could see where you'd look at somebody else and go, well, I wish I had somebody to do that for me. I wish I could afford that. I remember hearing about, I've been on a couple cruises, thank the Lord, I've enjoyed them. But when I've been on those cruise ships, I'm kind of in a normal cabin. But there are cabins on the cruise ship that are like the president's suite or whatever, and it has a grand piano in it, and it comes with a butler and all kinds of things. And instead of the cruise costing $1,000, the cruise costs $20,000. You're on the same cruise, but you just get the bigger room with the better view with the butler. Now, there are some people, $20,000 is not a lot of money to them, so that's not a big deal. All right, but we can look at that and go, well, I wish I was in the presidential suite. I'd be happy in life if I ever got to be in the presidential suite. No, that's not where my joy comes from. See, there's always a way for us to compare ourselves to someone else and go, if I had that, nor his ox, nor his donkey. All right, so this is their livestock, again, which was a sign of wealth. But these things, what do? They do some of the work for you. You got to plow a field, it helps to have an ox. You got to take a trip, it helps to have a donkey to put the stuff on. Or to ride to the place you're going instead of walking there. So there's lots of things, conveniences and tools and things in our life. And again, as I've said before, many of these things have to do with, like, what do I value? So I would suspect that most of the men in this room do not go, well, I can't go into Hobby Lobby because I just covet there. I just, I just need so many of the things that are in Hobby Lobby. Most men don't do that. Some of the ladies in the church might be like, I might be tempted to covet at Hobby Lobby. On the other hand, I suspect that there are some men in here that the tool section of Lowe's, you go in and you go, that Hitachi table saw, I kind of need that. Or whatever it is. That's where I might be tempted to covet. Or whatever it is that's your interest, You drive by the new car dealership and you see that shiny car and you go, that'd be nice to have one of those. I'd be happy if I had one of those. Or houses, those kinds of things. As I've often said, though, like most of you probably have never walked into a pastor's office and gone, I wish I had that book. All right? But there are plenty of pastors, that they go into somebody else's office. Where'd you get this book? This is out of print. That would really help me study for my sermons. All right? And so, just because you're studying for a sermon doesn't mean you're not able to covet. In fact, I had a friend in college that he had some nice books. And another guy who was studying for the ministry noticed his nice books. And he had put his name in the flyleaf of all of his books. And his books disappeared. And a friend of his, they reported it to the administration. A friend of his said, I saw somebody else has got all the books. He's got like almost the same library he used to have. And he reported them, and the dean went into the guy's room, and they noticed the flyleaf was cut out of every one of the books. Now think about the nonsense of this. You're preparing to be a pastor, and you're going to study out of books you stole? Like, it's crazy. Let me study for my sermon out of these nice books that I stole from somebody else. Okay, but sin is deceptive. That here you had one person coveting somebody else's theological library. So it could be all kinds of things. The thing that you covet, that you think I'd be really happy if I have this, might not matter to somebody else, but it does to you, and you think that you'll be happy if you have that. If I take that vacation, or if I have that person I'm married to, or if I have that house, or if I have that car, or if I have that bank account, or if I have that status, because some of this is about how wealthy I am. I have status. People will look at me with all those servants and think I'm great. Okay? And all of those things tell us you won't be happy unless you have this. And in fact, that's what a lot of our advertising is meant to do, isn't it? I mean, our marketing and advertising has moved way past, you get post-Civil War, and is when advertising really started to take off, but you get into the 20th century, and then they really kind of shift. You get like the 1870s, and they're like, buy our soap, it's 99.9% pure. Okay, great, it's good soap. That's what that means. But now what do they say? No, you know what? You buy our soap, you look like this model. Like somehow you can wash your face off and get theirs, right? That's kind of the implication of it. I've always joked about the the Gillette chick, whatever ads, where it's like, if you shave with our razor, then just the message isn't said, it's just the images they put on the screen. You shave with our razor, and then you see this guy with the smooth face and this pretty model's like caressing his smooth face. Look how good of a shave he got. And what message is that sending to men? Is it sending we have the best blades that won't cut you, that will get you a nice close shave and you won't be sticking things on your face to stop the bleeding? No, what it's saying is you use our razor and women will like you. All right? So if you want to be more attractive to women, don't use Schick, use Gillette or whatever. All right? And it's nonsense. It's just really not how it works. But see, what it's trying to get you to do is to go, it's not like buy our razor because it's best. It's buy our razor because it'll give you what you want in life. It'll give you status. It'll give you attractiveness. It'll give you, in other words, the things you think you need to be happy, you'll get if you buy our product. And our advertising is all over the place like that. I mean, that's where it is. It's intended that way. We used to joke, when the boys were little, my boys were little, we would get, they're pretty smart. They know the demographics. They know when you order things online or you go to the store and buy things, they kind of know what you're buying. And then, they figure out your kids are a certain age and you get the Amazon catalog with the toys. All of a sudden, like Christmas time, it's November, and used to be when I was a kid, it was the Sears toy wish list catalog, right? The wish book. And you'd get this catalog with all kinds of toys in it. And my boys would look through that. What do I want for Christmas? And we used to call it the coveting catalog. Because I won't be happy until I have this toy. And so we're geared toward this, that my joy is going to be found in this thing. Several New Testament passages talk about this as well. 1 Timothy 6, verse 9. First Timothy 6:9, but they that will be rich fall into a snare and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is the root of all, means all kinds of evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. But thou, O man of God, flee these things and follow after righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, meekness. Here's what he's saying. Those whose biggest goal in life is to be rich, not to be godly, but to be rich, fall into a trap. All right, it's a spiritual trap. It can destroy you. Nothing wrong with, trying to support your family, but what he's saying here is you can't love God and money. You can't love money like it's God. Mark 7, Jesus says something similar. We looked at Luke earlier. Mark 7. Verses 21 and 22 says, for from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these things come from within and defile the man. All right, so you got a lot of the 10 Commandments here, right? And what did Jesus say? Are these all external? No, they start in the heart. Covetousness starts in the heart and defiles us spiritually. Our things might be different than what they coveted in the ancient world because technology is different, but the fact is the heart of man has not changed. We want more. And that's what happens when you get the nicer house, then you notice that house isn't as nice as another one. You get the nicer car and you notice that car isn't as nice as another one. You get the better, whatever it is, thing that you wanted, and then you realize there's an upgrade to that, and then I'll be happy if I have that. But what does the Apostle Paul say in 1 Timothy 6:6? Godliness with contentment is great gain. In other words, great gain means like riches. What's real riches? Real riches isn't having a big bank account. Not that that's wrong, but real riches is to be godly and content. With food and raiment, let us therefore be content, the Apostle Paul said, right? So if you have enough to eat and you have clothes to wear, your needs are being met, then you can be content in the Lord. Covetousness says, no, that's not enough. You can't be happy in life with that. There's actually been psychological studies done for whatever value they have, and they found out there's actually an income level at which if you go above that, you don't get any happier. So I can understand if somebody's struggling to pay their bills and they don't always have money for groceries and that sort of thing, you just, at a low income level, that you're frustrated in life a little bit. Like, I'd like to be able to buy more food, but we kind of, are kind of skimping by here. But you get a certain point where all your needs are being met, and then, if you're making a certain amount and then you go above that and double it,